Good morning, everyone. Microphone check. Screen check. Microphone check. Mic. Okay, yeah, it is going. Good. Good morning. Welcome. Hopefully everyone had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up. All that fun stuff. Hopefully the weather wasn't too bad by you. And it was like just on and off storms, and then it was nice, and then it was gross, and then it was great, and then it was kind of gross again. It was all over the place here. And now I think I saw my phone just tell me that it was going to storm again soon. Ay. So I guess hopefully your weekends were a little bit nicer weather than mine, but either way, welcome. Make sure on the right side of the screen to read through the morning prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Also, just a quick note for you all before we jump on in. If you're watching on the YouTube side of things, the stream does have between like a 5 and 30 second delay, and that will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. Excuse me. All right. Hey, Ace. Good morning. Pavel, morning. Everybody else so far, good morning. I just want to take a second, like we do every day, to thank all of our new members, subscribers, Academy students, VIPs, and everyone in between. Welcome to the SSFTG fam. I'm super excited to have you all on board. If you aren't part of the SSFTG fam yet, you do have a ton of different ways to join up. The easiest way is to join as a YouTube member with the join button right below the stream. Gets you in the chat room, in the YouTube community board, stock and crypto chart posts, and all that fun stuff. Plus, it's just a bit more behind the scenes and what's going on. Of course, if you want to understand fully how we do everything, and then, of course, check out the Day Trading Academy along with everything else that we have to offer waiting for you over at ssftg.com. So whether you're here for the first time or the 1000th, good morning and welcome. I hope you are all ready to rock and roll alongside of me today, analyzing these crazy markets of ours. Let's take a look at some news, or the 100% lack thereof, and some charts and all that fun stuff, and let's get things rocking and rolling. I mean, you know, like I kind of got at there for a second, the news calendar is like non-existent. Well, whatever. Before we get there, don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those are posted for you every morning on the Major 7. NASDAQ, S&P Gold, Crude, Euro, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. Going over the weekend, still coming back strong. Nice. News calendar, I mean, there's nothing. There's just zero. Nothing happening today. We were kind of talking about in the Discord side of things how today is technically Columbus Day, and yeah, it's a holiday, but nothing's closed. Or what's it called now? It's not Columbus Day anymore. It's Indigenous Peoples Day. Whatever it is, it doesn't close the banks, and the markets are still open. So realistically, it's not really going to do anything as far as the markets are concerned. Although it does mean that the reduced amount of news today could cause a little bit of extra volatility. Something to maybe look forward to. We'll see. Either way, let's take a look at some charts, jump in here. First off, on the NASDAQ side of things, the market's going, I mean, for the most part, it's trying to reverse back to the upside. Now, I say trying, primarily because, well, if this was going to be an impulse to the upside, we've got some problems that shouldn't have come back and broken this. Remember last week how we were talking about impulses and all of that fun stuff as far as the continuation phase goes? Well, this means that, and again, it doesn't mean that the market can't go all the way back up to the highs. It's definitely a possibility. But what it does mean is that we have to look at this from a more realistic standpoint. The last high was totally missed, and the way that this is moving now is insinuating that we are in corrective movement. This is no longer impulse movement, because it's invalidated impulse movement, so we're still in a correction. So then we have to ask ourselves, well, what the heck are we in a correction of? If we're still in a correction, then what are we correcting? So let's zoom out a little bit further and see if something can line up, really. If we go back down to the previous inside swing, one of my favorite setups is trapping these lows at the highs and looking for stops at the bottom to not break down, and, well, they did break down a little bit, but eventually rotated back up to the highs of the strong rotation. If this is still a corrective phase, then realistically that would kind of make sense. Structurally, a lot of traders didn't really want to see that low broken. They were expecting this to break because that's where all the traps take place, but they didn't want to see that one break. So given that this is still in a corrective phase, and we know that now, given that we have the proof of that, we can go across the top and say, well, maybe they're still trying to reach out for something. You know, maybe it's not job done across the board. None of these really fit very nice. I guess for lack of anything else, I mean, we just kind of got this one. So if this is still a corrective phase, that doesn't mean that the market can't go higher. But if this is still a corrective phase, then I'm going to be very careful when we start reaching up here. That means that the bulls are going to have a harder time getting this thing to rotate. We've got some issues. I mean, I guess one nice thing is kind of a megaphone, cycling off the lows up to the highs, but I mean, look at the potential then, if it wants to keep going from there. Ooh, man. All right, well, we know that we're still in a corrective phase. From the 60-minute chart going back a little bit further, we've got wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, all the way down. And that wave 5, this is not an impulse. So again, we still know that we're in a corrective phase. Something's kind of waiting. We're not fully done with our mission here. So bulls might still be able to take it, but I'm going to be very concerned when they do. Looking at the overall momentum over on the S&P, it's the same problem. We have the retest of the inside swings that invalidates the impulse. Doesn't mean that the market can't go higher. It does certainly look very aggressively bullish, especially from a wedge breakout stance. But we know that this is not an impulse. And being that it's not an impulse, if they are going to go higher, they're going to have to create it from here. Which, I mean, that's a monster. Which would be absolutely incredible for the bulls. And that goes for the NASDAQ too. I mean, if they do end up holding here and continuing off, they could start the impulse off of that, wave 1, wave 2, and just keep screaming. But that's going to be a heck of a move. We should see some proof of that. Right now, we don't have that proof, so we've got to kind of remain a little bit on edge, I think is the best way to approach it. If we're looking at the volume across the top down to the bottom, and then the volume from the bottom up to the top, and then the volume from the top down to the bottom. We'll kind of break this all the way through. Okay. So what do we have in the overall structure of the S&P? We've got this first drive down, which, look at it from a logical mindset. What do you think that bulls would be looking to do here? Why do you think there's so much volume right there? I mean, realistically, it makes a lot of sense that the bulls tried to rally it higher and they got annihilated. We know that this move right here was that POC shift, if you measure from the bottom to the top. We already talked about that last week. So the fact that the market is driving down aggressively, we could have just had a two-legged completionary move, and it fits the bill. But since then, we went into kind of this wedge. And with that wedge, this is a really nice break. I mean, it's definitely a shot. They've got a shot at it, but man alive. They're not making it easy on themselves, that's for sure. The overall volume that we've got going on, we can't really be bullish until we get above the 91s. Or shift the POC. We do kind of have like this higher low going on over here. Still not enough. Hey, Brad, how's it going? Steven, Laddie, everyone else, good morning, good morning. Over on gold, I mean, this thing looks like a pump and dump out of, just out of something that I don't want to play with, that's for sure. I mean, how do we look at this thing? I don't even know what to do with this. It's so sharp. It's so sharp on all sides. Things like a caltrop. Look at this. I mean, we can look to trade it effectively as a range. I mean, every breakout, whether it's up or down or, heck, even sideways, doesn't really matter. They're all failing. So any large breach of any extreme so far has been a total miss. Even these, which is absolutely insane. Now, given the way that this is looking, this seems like it's ready for one of these moves, but down. Right? So it's kind of like a twin reversal, but the other way, with a really big distance in between. I don't know. I really don't like this. This makes me a bit nervous up on the top. We've been seeing this from the bulls, where they're reversing the bears after the bears have been spiking it lower. But what happened? What happened? It's gone. Dangerous. I mean, as far as a POC, it's got to be in the middle, right? There's no way it's not in the middle. Yeah. basically 1758, smack in the middle. And if we look at the most recent transition to the tick off of it, I mean, oh man, it's starting to get tough. I hope gold goes lower though, yeah. Got a gift gold voucher. Yeah. I don't even know how that works. A gift gold voucher. That's kind of cool. Is that like one of those gold vending machines out of Dubai? Here, I thought I was special with Bitcoin ATMs coming to the banks around here, and you got gift gold vouchers. We've got the bullish rally to the upside, switching over to crude oil. On a side note, definitely, it's the thing with gold that man, that reversal on the top scares the crap out of me. But how do we buy the dip? You know, as soon as it gets down to the 1722s, it just, I don't know. It's right in the middle. I don't want to play here. Anyway. Over on crude oil, we've got a continuation of the upside that's kind of finalized its move. We have made it over the 80s, actually over 81s, 82s even, and now beginning to pull back off of 81. Made it up to a positive 1 DP before rolling back to a positive half. Still hovering in this bullish momentum, and really, even if we look at not only this most recent move, but if we look at this from a larger structure, we've got the nice continued momentum to the upside, but at the same time, we also have a nice little trap low that we can kind of utilize here that gives us a little bit of a different vantage point, right? We've got wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, and wave 4 is not even much of a wave. It's mostly just sideways. So this deep, aggressive pullback, this is a very valid attempt from sellers. I mean, it's really hard to not believe that the sellers took a shot at that. But the concern is, were they coming back for something? Were they stuck from somewhere? Chances are, if they were stuck, it would have been from back here. So if we go with the POC all the way from the bottom to the top, were they rotating off of something? We already know this answer. We talked about this last week. 75.20. So why would the market rotate so aggressively out of there? Well, it's because the shorts were finally given a chance to GTFO a break even. Right? And they took it, obviously. And now V-bottom screaming all the way up to the highs. So realistically, what can we expect from this kind of momentum? If we have a V-bottom in a rotation higher, a lot of times they're going to try to get it doubling up. Or at least some form of a doubling up. It might be in the ratio of like a 618 doubling. Right now, this is a 50% doubling. And they're even responding to that. So it doesn't necessarily look like the bulls are looking for huge targets, he says, as crude oil's trading into 82. But, I mean, the bulls are still heavily in charge, and it looks like it's not going to end for a little while. The shorts have jumped ship. And with this continuation to the upside, if we keep driving that forward, keep that over at the low, get this up to the next new high. The POC rotated up just a little bit at 77.60. And then up to the next new high, where it is now, still back at 77.60. So if the market does pull back, which, I mean, from a value perspective would be phenomenal. This thing has gone way over the top. It would be really nice to see an overvalue flush down into the 77.60s. I mean, heck, even the 78s. But we do have a lot of support at 79. There's a ton of volume there. And I mean, we're talking dollars away on crude oil. That might not necessarily happen all in today, but it's still something to pay attention to. Over on the euro, this thing is still a mess. Still going very sideways, still very repetitious of what it's been doing over and over and over again. You have a big slide down, kind of pulls back a little bit, goes sideways, continues lower. We've got a nice little corrective phase, goes sideways, pulses lower, sideways, corrective phase up, probably going to pulse lower. A lot of the sellers are anticipating this trend to keep going. There's nothing suggesting that this trend is over unless we start really shearing above these previous 1.166. Then we would have some previous major structural breaks. Right, then we would have a previous major swing high. That would prove something. That's a lot. Right? That's a lot to do for this market. I don't know. Let's see if it can do that much. Over on the crypto side of things, still on up, moving on up. We're going into the 57,000s, 58s, right around the corner, 60s, not too far away. This thing hasn't pulled back at all. I mean, every gap that we've broken out, look at these rips. Swing gap after swing gap after swing gap, candle gap after candle gap, all the way. This thing's just screaming. Now, that said, right, we are seeing this market begin to transition a bit more sideways, a bit more, you know, constrictive. It's got to figure out what it wants to do here. Now, I'm certainly not going to draw volume on my Coinbase chart because that's going to crash it. But I would be willing to guess that we have a POC that's either here at around 48 to 47 or a POC that just shifted up off into the 55s. Just given the way that it's kind of moving. Let me get this over here real quick. Let's look at Bitcoin. We've got the hourly. That's the POC that they left behind. But what about the new one going up? Yep, not quite far enough. Okay, yeah, buddy. Wow. Whew, lordy. All right, I'm sure they had a POC up here once they broke higher. Oh, they didn't. They never shifted the POC off the lows until they made it up into this high. When did they do it? They didn't do it yet. They didn't do it until this most recent high. So this POC just shifted up. So that would suggest that bulls have potentially maybe taken a little bit of profit. I feel like that's reasonable. But along with that, right, along with that mentality of the bulls possibly taking profit, this is not necessarily equal to the volume down here. Yes, it's one big spike, but if you clump all of this volume together, that's not the whole bit, right? So realistically, it's logical to assume that the longs are very likely still long. They've just exited with some or a majority profit. Maybe 70, 60, 70, 80% position size is taken off. That still means that they're long, right? And we can see that with the market transitioning above the POC. But here's the thing that gets a little bit crazy, because if this breaks further, then we have a top-weighted POC that is broken out. And when we have a top-weighted POC that breaks out, you can usually project from the bottom to the POC and then go further up. Because usually that POC ends up being the middle of a larger leg. And that means that we have projected targets through all-time highs up to 70,000 in the near term. If we continue breaking higher. And if we get back above 58s, 59s, what's to stop them? You know? Previous resistance, I guess. We'll have to wait and see. The near term is starting to get very aggressive. If they lose their ground under this, then a deeper pullback is logical. Over on Ethereum, beautiful flush play back to the downside. And again, one of my favorite plays, if you go along with it, we did a YouTube video on it not too long ago. Yeah, the all-time highs as the target, I feel like is a logical point, Steve. That just kind of makes sense to me. You know, I think that's where everybody is lazily going to look for, or somewhere around there, front-running it, you know, whatever. But if it can make it through there, what's going to stop it? You know, what stopped it the last time when it got up to 20,000 and nobody decided to get in its way? Right. It went from 20 to 60. Just, you know, there's a lot of it's on the precipice of interest, that's for sure. And same goes for Ethereum. Like I was saying, you know, one of my favorite setups, looking at these previous confirmed swings, little bitty ones. We finally got a nice little deep confirmed swing. Oop, trap. Keep it underneath the last one. Rotate all the way back up. Upside objectives. Back up to the 3650s, 3700s, possibly through 4000s. And then if we're pushing all-time highs on both Ethereum and Bitcoin, then that just opens the door for things to go absolutely crazy. We'll see. All right. Let's switch gears over here. That there. Something's not right. 10 minutes until the open. There we go. goofy thing. Man, Ninja, I tell you. I load up a template just a slightly different way and the whole thing crashes, and what a mess. Man, gold. That rally up right there at 820, right at the gold, the FOPEN, the open. Does gold still have a pit? I thought gold was one of them that does still have a pit. Man, I don't remember now. I thought it was gold bond, and the indexes. Is there still a gold pit? There's still a CME pit for gold. Yeah, seems like it. No, permanently closed physical trading. I mean, obviously because of the pandemic, but I mean, normally, is there a gold trading pit? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting when when all that starts coming back. I know the CBOE is rebuilding. That's looking nice. The last time I saw the update pictures, at least. Hey, how's it going, Vicky? Oh, whoa, that was a wrong key. Those some thick candles. I'm too young to know what a gold trading pit is. Oof. Mine hurts. The trading pits, go back and watch a, what was the name of that video? I've got it on Blu-ray in my closet somewhere, with all of my, like, collector's old Blu-rays that I'm never going to get rid of. Floored, that's what it's called. You can watch the whole thing for free on YouTube. It was one of those indie projects that they also sold, and you could support them by buying the Blu-ray and DVD and stuff. But the series is called Floored, and they talk about all these different pit traders. Incredibly interesting. If you haven't seen Floored and you're into trading at all, you need to see Floored. It's a really, really cool, fantastic movie. But that will show you what the pits are. It's basically just a bunch of grown men screaming at each other. Grown men and women screaming at each other in a pit that is very similar to a gladiator's pit, but without weapons. And they're trying to fill orders and make believe that each other understands each other, and they have to wear, like, the brighter coats to gain more attention, and the louder you are, the better, and there's hand signals. It's a whole different, like, it's wild. I know all the hand signals. Right? Well, I'm a bit rusty. It's been a minute. Oh, floored. It's sorry, Floored, like a floor, but you got floored. Floored. It's a really good series. Pretty sure you can watch the whole thing for free on YouTube, like I said, but if you find it interesting, you can also support the creators by the Blu-ray and DVD and all that. It's incredibly fascinating. Honestly, even if you're not really into trading, but... We've got about 5.5 minutes until the open right around the corner here. There's not really a whole lot going on. The markets are kind of calm and quiet. We've got the NASDAQ trying to cruise back to the upside. I mean, realistically, looking at the pre-market... Ooh, I gotta turn those back off. That looks terrible. Looking at the S&P so far and kind of kicking things off, it really hasn't done much. I mean, they had that initial slide down, and then they're trying to reverse it back up. That's really all that's happened. The initial pulse lower. I'm trying to get the volume on, but it won't. Come on, no. What? Is there no volume there? Oh, my data's probably bugged, right? Yeah, God forbid I actually see the necessary data that I need. That would be an incredible convenience. Can't have that. We've got the move back up. POC was back here at 43.73, but I have no idea if that's where it was initially. Really frustrating sometimes to deal with that. Overall, back and forth. POC kind of hovering back. Ugh, just haven't done anything. I'm about ready to get rid of the euro. And just continue to cover it with Sheeb, because Sheeb's moving still. No, I just accidentally changed it. Crap. Sheeb, where'd you go? What a rotation. Bull's trying to continue further up there, too. That just keeps on going. That thing's absolutely nuts. Would you ever... Sorry, let me figure out where my lips went on my face there for a second. Would you ever trade the pre-market open for any reason? Sure, if there was, like, would I put a trade on right now? Yeah, I mean, if there was a good enough reason to. But it's got to be a really good reason, because the volatility at the open can rip your face off. Now, if I were holding a position from like 9-10 and we were going into the open, I'm not going to close it because we're going into the open. But I do have to be on guard. You know, if you've got to be ready for it to potentially rip all the way back and possibly go negative in seconds. So it's a risk that you take. You could close it going into the open, or just choose to wait until after the open. I know a lot of traders, if they're going to wait for after the open, they'll wait for the first 15. That's usually the most common. Like at 9:45, that's when a lot of the pattern trading and all that stuff comes in. A lot of the psychological trading and scalping and all that stuff happens in the first 15. That's when everybody's going crazy. 2 minutes until the open. And here it sits so far, not really doing a whole lot of anything. If we look at where the NASDAQ is, it's at 748.75. That's down here. So if you're trying to figure out where it's at, we're down here. Job done. Gap closed. Technically, it isn't yet. We're going to be opening underneath it. We're going to have to pop up and close the gap again. That's what that gold level was. Herpadur. Close 65.50. There we go. And as far as the S&P is concerned, they're not even close. That gap is way down there. 55 quarter. Got 15 seconds. All right. Market is open. NASDAQ opening underneath that unfilled gap, technically still back at 65.50, although really, obviously, if it's underneath it, it's already filled in. Still something to consider. A little bit of back and forth, but honestly, not a whole lot happening. Okay. I guess we'll continue to hang out here for a minute and see if anything wants to set up. If the S&P can get above settlement, they may have a chance at trying to take it higher, but the Nasdaq's real far away. Alright, and here it sits. Nasdaq and the S&P pushing down a little bit more aggressively. Still not really proving a whole lot, but... Bulls pushing right back again. Wow. Alright, big bounce back up. Nasdaq technically, physically fills 765.50. On the S&P, first zone of interest is going to be just slightly underneath the low for a bullish rotation back to the upside. If it pulls back. We do have the gap fill. Not just the previous one. Nasdaq's a little bit further down. The 52s. Now again, looking at the bigger rotation, the bulls are attempting to take their conviction back to the upside. This is the point where it's low probability, high reward. So, you know, it is what it is. Probably looking at a likelihood of about 29 to 32% likelihood, but the reward is about a 3 to 1, so mathematically that's still fine. S&P didn't pull back far enough. Nasdaq already pulsing back up to a new high. The first 5-minute bar now being plotted in. $79, 80. Why does it always do that? God, that's frustrating. And the POC on the S&P is at 77.25. Nothing else really happening yet. NASDAQ putting in the POC towards the top, but the market's closing above the previous gap area as well. A lot more interest is going to be more on like a pullback zone. But as a higher low, like... maybe even filling in some of the volume back here. There's a nice void there, though. Gold just doing whatever gold wants to do. Now screaming all the way back to the upside again. V top into a V bottom. Similar reasoning, but the NASDAQ has a little bit more sense in being a bit higher up to maintain the support, whereas the NASDAQ rather, whereas the S&P makes, with that gigantic sideways first candle of the day, makes a lot more sense to try to fade nearer to the low. The probability for both sides initially is going to be, like I said, 29 to 32-ish%, but you're looking at like a 3 to 1, so. Of course, assuming that it just immediately bounces off of it and goes straight up. We know that's not how the market always plays, though. So far, relatively calm and quiet open initially. Couldn't quite pull back far enough so far. They both got close. Not close enough, though. There's not really a whole lot of anything going on. The market's relatively calm and quiet. Feeling kind of stable, if anything. Zooming out to the bigger picture and kind of keeping an eye on where things are. I mean, really, we've got... This is the shot, right? This is the bull's attempt to try to reverse this back to the upside. Again, realistically, if you move this a little bit further forward, you're looking for the rotation back above POC and for that to maintain. And that's above the 90-75s. Not quite there yet. So it's still early, which is why the probability is diminished. But with that being early also comes the reward of having a potential of a 3 to 1, 5 to 1, etc. It's a trade-off. Didn't pull back far enough, though. Bah humbug. All right. NASDAQ continuing back up. S&P is as well, although in a very different way. The NASDAQ's got some solid, nice bull bars to the upside. The S&P has a really gross-looking first candle into an inside bull bar 2. And now they're trying to break out on bar 3. I mean... Potential zone of resistance is back in this kind of pocket of wicks back here, obviously, but a little bit above the top of that would be the trapping zone. As far as the NASDAQ is concerned, a little bit lower would be beneficial. Let's get a little closer to these candles, huh? Sheeb just kind of going sideways a little bit, but I mean, look at every time on the 15-minute chart there's an attempt from the sellers. Just gets absolutely obliterated. Like, no follow-through at all. Total reversals every single time. Sheeb looks really good for another move up. I also like the look of Doge. I think that's going to be a secondary pulse along with Sheeb. Link is another one that's looking fairly interesting. I mean, just there's some pretty wild moves going on over on the crypto side of things. We've got more continuation to the upside after the first 15. Well, not quite 15, but close enough. We've still got the POC hovering back in the 780s. The gap was filled at 765.50. That was the... yeah, I'm still in Shiba. I've been re-adding on the dip. so I'm definitely still in, yeah. I took profit on the initial rally up. My initial average, I don't remember the exact price. I'd have to go back and look at my executions. This is like 680s. There were some buys in like the 500s. There were some in the 700s, whatever. So we'll just say like 650. Took profit in the initial rally. I took profit too early when it first started pushing into the 17s, 1800s. I wasn't expecting it to go to like 3,000. So I took initial profit into that first pump, not all of it, a little bit more into the secondary rally when it did go into the 3,000s, and rebought into that last pullback that you can see here with the green box. Bought back into that dip, took some profit back off into this area, re-added a little bit more. I'd have to look last night what time I added that, but it wasn't any sizable amount. I mean, it was a modification of very, very small percentages, just because it's way up here. And now, because of all that, my average is at like 1,700 or something like that, so I've got to be a little bit more careful now. But I'm still in, yeah. I still think this has a shot, but it's got to break through the 3123s. 3100s. I mean, if they can break through the 3000s, it's freaking showtime. Hit the gas pedal to the floor. There's not much else that's going to hold them down anymore after that. I tried to get the pullback on the index markets, but didn't quite pull back far enough. We'll see if they want to keep going. My active trade positions that I've got on right now is in Doge, which I'm actually still right about break even right now. My average position's at 2347. Sorry, I've got to look at my phone to do it. It's at 2347 on Doge. On ADA, I'm a little bit underwater, but just barely into the position at $2.23. And then obviously Shiba, which my average, hang on, I'll tell you. My average is at $17.99. Yeah, I knew it went up a little bit. How do I see my history? Hang on. Whatever. Sheeb looks like it's ready to go frickin' crazy again. We've got 3 really strong bull bars on the NASDAQ to the upside with some candle gapping in between. Incredibly strong emphasis to the upside, but we've got a top-weighted POC. That's a bit of a problem. If we look at the overall location, The POC, does it line up with anything? Does it fit anything? Let's go back to Friday. We had the initial rally to the upside. We had the POC, which was drastically bottom-weighted. They were defending it into the end of the day, hoping for probably a gap up into the weekend, and they did not get that. They got a gap down. So a lot of those traders, they might be looking at that like, oh crap, where's a scalp? let me take just a scalp. And if that's the case, then really the scalper's target is being hit right inside here. I was actually even underneath that. So, took profit by 80% and let the rest run wherever it wants to go. Go to $2. Oh my god, could you imagine Shiba going to $2? Holy crap. We buying islands, baby. Whoa. We're already buying islands if it goes to a penny. I mean, jeez. You let me know where I gotta put the Red Bull in, and I'll be there. $2, I'm gonna start challenging JP Morgan with those kinds of zeros. Holy moly. I'm coming for you, Jamie. Me and my sheep army. Oh, man. We've still got a heck of a lot of continuation to the upside. Bulls are screaming away. There's no pullback. Well, there was a pullback, but they missed my entry. Didn't quite get that one. We are after 9:45, so a lot more of the pattern style trading will be coming in, which means that things get a little bit slower, but a little bit more consistent. If we're looking at the upside as far as projections, like I said, we do have a candle gap between bar 2 and now 4. We also have a candle gap between bar 1 and 3, although relatively small, and probably already filled in. Actually, no. The candle gap's a little bit further up there in the 859s, 860s. So we do still have open candle gapping on the first bar 1 to 3, as well as 3 to 4, which is still developing. Lots of potential for this thing to keep going up. Gold is pulling back, but I mean, like, is this just another V-top? You know, like, or is this just a pullback? This, man, I have a really hard time trusting gold right now. This thing scares the crap out of me. I don't really want to dip my toe into gold right now. Feels like it's full of piranhas. With frickin' laser beams. Or sharks. Sorry, sharks. It's just all bull bars, yeah. Just straight up. There's not a single bear bar in sight. Even on the S&P. I mean, I know the first candle was a train wreck, but still. If you pretend the wick on the top of bar 1 doesn't exist on the S&P, looks great. Looks like they're doing really well. And then just as a heads up, as we are getting closer to 10 o'clock, my son has an ophthalmology appointment today, so I'm not going to be going into an extended session. I've got to duck out early. And so I figured I would just keep the morning session going today, which is why I didn't even schedule an extended. I already knew it wasn't going to happen. So we'll just keep the morning session going. It might still go until 10:20, 10:30, you know, a little bit later, but I am going to have to duck out to get him from school sooner than later. And I'm anticipating things to get more and more distracted as the day goes on. So I figured I might as well just keep this going and just skip the extended session until tomorrow where we can have some fun. And hopefully tomorrow we'll have a little bit more news volatility and stuff, but so far, first 4 bars of the day on the index markets, just straight up. No bear bars, no pullbacks, nothing. All the way up. Eventually there will be a pullback, there always is. If we're looking at the bigger perspective, this is exactly what the bulls needed to do. I've got some concerns on the S&P, I'll talk about that in a second. If we're looking at the NASDAQ from the top to the bottom, and then we go from the bottom up to the top, and then from the top all the way down to the bottom with that vindictive lower high. So yes, we are pulling back. We're hitting a really nice point of interest for the bulls to be bouncing off this. Like I said, I mean, it's a really nice area to be looking for longs. This is why I wanted to buy the dip. I didn't get a fill. But this is the area where traders are going to be looking for. Now, the challenge point is going to be breaking through this at 850. That's the last POC that we left behind. So the fact that we left this last POC behind at the 850s, that would potentially suggest, and especially with this lower high, that these longs tried buying the dip and they got absolutely dunked on. They were given several chances to get out at break even. This is the last dive to get out at break even. If we find strong bearish resistance here, this could potentially V-top reverse straight into the floor. So I know it looks really strong, but I've got to be on my guard this morning. We've got POCs building up on the top. We're seeing some underlying warning signs, more so on the NASDAQ. But if we go out to the S&P, and, not the 5-minute. If we look at the S&P, it's got a similar situation where we've got that last POC back here. We're bouncing off of a larger zone of interest, right? The problem is, if they don't hold here on the lows for the S&P, the only other thing is down here at 4280. So they're standing on the cliff right now. They've got to hold this thing up. And right now they are directly on top of resistance. Gold's creeping its way a little bit further back down there. If we dissect these V-top, V-bottom moves, yeah, it's top-weighted, bottom-weighted POCs each time. See what they want to do here. Really, really strong continuation to the upside. No trades for me so far today. Didn't get a fill. Man alive. Just straight up. Look at the faster time frame. There's nothing. There are no pullbacks. Keeps on going. Eventually there'll be a pullback, yeah. First pullback likely to be a bit more aggressive. Shiba's starting to get top weighted up into those 3000s. Look at this possible pennant forming. And just as a side note, look at how, like, picture perfect this rising support line looks. Like, geez. That almost suggests to me that there's some algorithmic buying going on. This thing could go crazy. Do what Doge couldn't. Get up to 420. Yet. Couldn't do yet. I mean, just nothing happening right now. The market is going straight up. Waiting for a little bit of a pullback. Likely the first zone of interest will be underneath the previous candle's low. On both fronts, on the NASDAQ and the S&P. Could dip a little bit further than expected, though, because, again, context-wise. If this just V-tops, it's going to be a real tough day. Just hovering. I tell you what, though, bulls are incredibly aggressive. That's crazy. Seems like the gold buyers are buying into the dip, so, I mean, at least they're doing somewhat of what's expected. I can't trust gold. Not with its movement like this. 2 seconds. All right. And here we sit. Market just kind of going sideways a little bit. Plenty of candle gaps to the upside. If we're looking at upside objectives to try to figure out where the market may want to go, the latest gap up actually just hit to the tick. The next gap is here. And then the next gap is there. Candle gap objectives all over the place. That one just hit. This one's still confirming. I'm going to give the S&P a little bit more time. NASDAQ pulling back to the 845s. I had to step away for a bit. AMES doesn't look like you faded. A long entry was hit. No, it wasn't. I got missed. Just. But I got missed. So far today, I actually don't have any trades. Nothing. I haven't gotten filled. I tried buying the pullback, but, well. I'll watch the MNQ. I think it was late to the party. Yeah, for sure. Buyers are defending into the POC at 14,845. I mean, again, these higher lows are up in the stratosphere right now. Oh, yeah, it's all good. Bulls continuing to the upside. Breaking out above the top. Still no pullback. First candle gap objective being filled. The S&P is creating new candle gap objectives to the upsides right here. NASDAQ candle gap objective target filled. Next candle gap objective is just slightly above that. Green the whole day. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's good for the portfolios, but kind of boring from the intraday side of things. Sheeb starting to break above the highs. 3,000s are right around the corner. If we can rifle above the 3,100s, this thing could go absolutely catatonic. It'd be just my luck I get into the NASDAQ and it drops like a bomb, yeah. Well, and that's kind of my concern, because the market's reaching up on the bigger perspective to break evens, right? You know, so I mean, if it wants to reverse back down again, this would be the spot. This is where it would roll over and rip everyone's face off. So it's a very real fear to have right now. Got to admit, I'm liking less and less the way that the NASDAQ looks. A little after 10 o'clock, still kind of hanging out. Crude oil buyers picking up underneath the previous candle's low and pulsing back to the upside. S&P still continuing higher. NASDAQ still continuing higher. NASDAQ hitting some major objectives. There hasn't been a single pullback. So you either got it in the morning, which I got misfilled on the NASDAQ and the S&P, and, you know, or you just sit there and wait. Which is what I find myself doing this morning. Bum-bum-ba-no. Dang it. How much time they have left on this one? They've got basically 1 minute left on the candle. Yikes. Got a heck of a start to the day so far. First 30 minutes just straight up. Gold breaking above the POC, and in 30 seconds we'll be confirming it. And here it sits. What a lovely candle close that was. Really disgusting wick on the top. Still has been no pullback whatsoever. Although, given the location and everything that's going on, might make a bit more sense to look at the NASDAQ rather than the S&P. But the NASDAQ's already completed major objectives, so kind of have to look at the S&P. This little dip lower on the S&P is getting fairly interesting. NASDAQ's going to have to dip further. It's already completing too many objectives up at the top, although it does still have a secondary objective that's open. How often do you have a day without any trades? Not very often. I don't remember the last time we had a day without any trades. It's probably been over a month, if not longer. I mean, it's very infrequent, especially considering the fact that we're looking at 5, 6 plus markets. But when it just decides to go in one direction and doesn't fill you on the first pullback and only pullback, there's only so much you can do, you know. You could chase it too, I guess, but I know if I do that, I'm going to be buying the exact top, like to the tick. I know Murphy's hanging out in the bush, just waiting for me to slip up. I won't give him that. I won't give him the satisfaction. I'm sure eventually something will happen. Well, either way, we are after 10 o'clock, and I know things are slowing down a little bit, so if you have questions, feel free to throw those in. We'll get those covered for you. Haven't had any setups, although I am looking at a valid pullback of any kind of, like, substance. But on guard, for sure, because that pullback could be a lot more than a pullback. This may end up being a V-top. S&P's POC shifting to the upside at 4,400. They're making a lot of red flags here, gotta say. Oh, they got a doji. They tried closing that candle bearish. Did you see that? Right at the end of the candle, that doji opened to the next candle down. They were trying to get that candle to close bearish. So we have to ask ourselves, why would they do that? Maybe they were trying to get some algos to hit it to the downside for them. I think shorts might still be in here, and I think they might be stuck. They're trying to use some pretty shizy tactics here, and they're getting ran over. Look at him get smashed. All the way back up to finish the objective. That's what happens when you play with fire. You get burned sometimes. I don't know if you caught that. You'll have to go back and watch the replay. But if you watch right when that doji was about to close, a big chunk of orders came in trying to get it to close down. And I say close down because the very next candle opened with a gap down, which would suggest that sellers were trying to get that candle to look bearish. And could you imagine a small little bear inside bar closing on its low up at the top with a top-weighted POC and a larger POC from a 15-minute? Yikes. It's no wonder they wanted that to be bearish. They got wrecked. But, you know. Pulls to the upside, finishes the objective off on the NASDAQ and the S&P, basically. The S&P missed it by a tick. Front runners may have gotten filled. Shiba breaking over 3,000. Whoop, whoop. 3,100, baby. Let's go. Pop 3,100, and it's game time. Going above the 3,000s, trying to pierce in. 3,100's not too far away. Massive rejection on the candle gap target for the S&P and the NASDAQ now with big wicks up at the top. Shiba's getting close. What's the symbol for Shiba? SHIB, Sandy Hotel India Bravo. I look at it at Shiba USDT on Binance is the one that I choose. Binance trades the most volume, so. Those candle gap objectives, some serious targets getting taken out there. Come on, Shiba. Go, go, go. All right, I'm gonna have to duck out here in a little bit for my son's appointment. So let's go into training time. Going into 10:30 here, and then we'll wrap up and call it a day. No pullback. I've had no trades on the future side of things. I didn't get a fill. I tried buying the pullback, but my preferred site for buying Shiba. My preferred site for buying Shiba would be on crypto.com because it's just easier there. But I had a bunch of referral shares that I sold on Webull, which is where I use that. So just to be totally open, that's what I used. I just bought into it that way instead. So you can buy it on Webull, but that's not my preferred platform to buy and hold on. I would rather buy and hold on a platform that's a little bit more crypto oriented. You know, it's buying crypto on Webull is like buying crypto on Robinhood, which is the same as like going to Pizza Hut for a salad. You know, it's you can, and they're all right. You know, but that's not what they're for. You go to a pizza shop for pizza. You know, it's the same kind of mentality here. I would rather choose a broker who is designed and built around trading crypto rather than a stock broker that threw crypto on there to appeal to the masses. You know what I mean? So every referral that I get on Webull, I sell the shares and I buy Shiba with. Again, I'm just being totally open. And if I want to buy it outside of that, then I use crypto.com. So, yeah, no problem. Is the ES going to keep going up? I mean, I have a hard time believing that it won't. Especially given that we're starting to breach back above those larger POCs. I mean, look at the close above that POC. It wasn't shy about it. It didn't close just above it. It closed like 1.5 miles above it. So with that amount of conviction, I mean, that's kind of the objective, to keep this going to the upside now, breaking above the POC and rotating back. Now they can reclaim back into the highs. It's still likely more of a corrective wave than anything else. But again, this could be starting that much larger. Looks like Shiba has no resistance if they want to test the highs. We're through the 100s. They're going. What is Slingshot Futures? That's the acronym for the underlying SSFTG, Slingshot Futures Trading Group. It's just that whole website and that whole name is just way too long. So I wanted to make life a little bit more simplistic and went the route of SSFTG instead. But it stands for Slingshot Futures Trading Group. Calling it a day. Too much hammering overhead. Yeah, have a good one, Maurice. Enjoy. Trading platform. Oh, no. I understand the question now. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were asking. No, I use, as far as the charting platform goes, I just use NinjaTrader. SSFTG in and of itself is an education source to teach traders how to trade more along the lines of the psychological aspect. It's not necessarily in the realm of technicals, although obviously with the 20 plus hours of video course material, we cover technicals, obviously. But a lot of the focus in what we do is the behind-the-scenes psychological aspect of the market. But it's an education source, not like Top Step. Although we do have the APN Plus and a few things like that, which are a way for traders to kind of protect themselves against themselves. And you can find out more about that on SSFTG. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Shiba's breaking above the 3100s. We got those targets getting filled. Nice big pop up there. Now, the big question next is going to see really how far do they want to take this, you know? Yeah, no problem. S&P's continuing up, now breaching the candle gap objective target. There's been no bear bars. There's been no new low. There's been nothing. Jeez. Man, I've been trying to buy the pullback all day on the NASDAQ and the S&P. What pullback, John? Exactly. That's the problem. A lot of times when you have this type of continuation to the upside, the type of scenario that we're looking for here is more of a singular first major leg to the upside, and then wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, like this kind of spike in channel continuation mentality. From there, that's where they're going to have to figure out what they want to do. And you can kind of see it taking place here. You've got the spike into the channel. We're beginning to transition as is. When they start pulling back, usually the transition point that they want to pull back to is the bottom of the flag point, which in this case is also where the POC is. It's at 14,845. Nice job, Steven. Have a good one. Enjoy. I'm glad you got something. Man, jeez, I couldn't get my teeth into anything. Hopefully later today we get something a bit better. As far as a pullback is concerned, just have to come back tomorrow. There's part of me that wants to put like an out-of-the-money put on the table. Just to look for it to fade back in the overnight because this feels just so massively overextensive. But any time that I go against the market like that, it never works. It's just a straight-up gamble. There's casinos, you know, in town. You can hit those. That's exactly what that would be. It would be a total gamble shot to the downside. There's no... Unless we get some extra conviction. We've already gone through all of the areas where the sellers should have taken back over, where they would have been exiting at break-evens, etc. The bulls have every reason to keep it going. Upside objectives on Shiba now? I mean, we're clearing above everything. We're back at the previous POC at 31.29. It's still kind of hovering above it. I would really like to see them get through the 3200s and keep clearing above this last POC. But remember, this last POC is a confirmed POC from the top to the top. Okay, so this is a bullish POC that they got dumpstered on. So it's important that the market's coming back to this area, and this is the area that they have to break through, because these are the bulls who got absolutely slammed, and they have not been given a chance to get out at break even until now. It's the first time. So it's going to be a bit of a concern if they can't close above that. I would really like to see this go. If we're looking at it now that we do have a new high from a confirmed POC standpoint going all the way across, nice and bottom weighted. Man, I got in late. All the averages down here in the 26s, huh? I obviously did not buy near enough. Like I said, I bought a very small position size to re-up. I didn't want it to mess up my average too much, and I should have just re-entered all in. All on red. Spin it. No thanks. So the next upside objectives on SHIB, if we can break above the 3200s, realistically would be up into the 3400s, up to the all-time highs. I mean, that's it. If it breaks above that, it's showtime. This thing could go absolutely insane. It could also fall flat on its face. I mean, how many traders do you think bought into this pullback in and of itself? If we were to cumulatively go all the way across all this, this is the bullish POC that they're buying into. And you can see how they did it. Right? They rallied underneath it. They bought in a little bit at the previous POC, jumped back up, and then they start hammering on the gas pedal. Look at all the volume that's traded in. It's like a shelf. So, I mean, the bulls are obviously in control, which is why I'm still interested in buying these dips. But my concern is that if they hit the highs and fall flat on their face, they're going to have a hard time. Then we're going to have a double top and it falls back down. If they can crack above the top, then realistically, one of two scenarios takes place. A shorter term equalized high, meaning that we can go back to our previous broken high measurements. So that's not the one I want. That's one. Go from the top. Get rid of some of these now that we're not in a pullback. We'll go from the top to the top. Just about a 32% blow off. The next one after that. Well, the initial blow off was 15%, but in the end it made it up to 25-ish. And then after that, the thing went absolutely freaking crazy, all the way up to the highest 40%. So one of two things, right? We either hit the highest double top, it fails and rolls all the way back down, or we fall flat on our face on this previous POC. And if we can break above the highs and not fall flat on our face, then we got a shot at a good 25 to 30% rally, possibly even into the 40%. So, I mean, there's definitely a possibility for runs to the upside. If we're looking at like we'll meet it on the low side and say 23-ish%, that would put it around 43.70. And if we're looking at the upside above the highs, at 32% would give us an upside pocket of right around 46.66. That's ominous. With extended continuations at around 41%, we'll just go 40. That'd be basically up to 5,000. So it's got a lot of potential. Definitely have my eyeballs on it. When taking a picture... Oh, come on now. Jeez, oh Pete's. You can't beat yourself up. If you're if you have an issue with the that's called a gloss or a high gloss finish, they make the color of the monitor look absolutely color rich, beautiful, right? But the problem is with a high gloss, it reflects everything. They work really well in caves and in dark lighting systems where you have no access to the outside world. It was a good in theory idea as far as glossy screens go. There are things that you can do to manage the glare that you get. One of the big things is just figuring out where the light sources are glaring from most, obviously from directly behind you. So if you're going to be taking a picture with a flash, then you're going to expect that thing to turn into a mirror, and you're going to be right there. So standing off to the side or something like that, you know, that's just kind of the way that those glossy screens work. There's no way around it. You can get the, it's like I don't want to call it a film, but for lack of better words, it's like a film that you put over the top of it that reduces the gloss. But then why get a glossy screen? It makes the colors less rich. It's, you know. I'm a big fan of glossy screens, but I hate the reflection. I'm there with you. Or like, you know, when you open up your phone and you try to take a picture of something and it's the front-facing camera and all you see is your 17 chins. Like, oh, bro, really? I could have done without that. I hate that. No screen, try to send the picture to you. Yeah, shoot me the... if you want to send the picture, you can shoot it in Discord. Or if you're having a tough time with Discord. Even though I do have Discord Nitro, I've boosted our server, so you should be able to attach bigger ones, bigger pictures. But because it's a private message, I don't know if that translates over. You can also just shoot it to me email-wise, too. That's fine. I'm just curious to see how it all turned out. I'm a nerd. I can't help it. All right. Going on 10:30, we're finally pulling back, but we're pulling back after we've already achieved some major objectives. I'm not interested in the shallower pullback. I am expecting a deeper pullback, much deeper than a lot of traders are going to expect to see. One of two things is going to happen. This is either going to continue holding this really aggressive micro pullback trend, which I'm just not going to take part of, or we finally get a value pullback down towards, it doesn't even have to be back to POC, just a little bit further down, like in the 50s at least, you know? Something. On the NASDAQ. On the S&P, the S&P might have to go a little bit further down to like sub 4400s. We'll see. Either way, I'm going to have to duck out and I'm not going to be able to participate anyway. Shiba, off to the moon. Hopefully it breaks above the 3200s and we can keep going. Right now, that is the roadblock. Either way, though, no futures trades for me. I didn't have any. I tried initially right out of the gates, but I couldn't get a fill on the pullback and it ran without me. So I have to come back tomorrow with our game faces on. And obviously, don't let that psychologically tilt you. That's just going to make things worse. Rest up, come back tomorrow ready to rock and roll, and we'll see if there's some better opportunities tomorrow that I can actually get my teeth into. Sounds like a few of you were able to find stuff, though, so that's good. Either way, though, if you have any questions that I may have missed, shoot me an email. I'll get those covered for you from there, or on the YouTube side of things, drop them in the comments below, and we'll get them one way or another. Enjoy the rest of the day. Hopefully you had a great day of trading. Hopefully you got some fills, and we'll see you in the next one, all right? Have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.